Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Crumbs and Corkscrews. I'm Lou, the dessert obsessed baker, and whether you're joining me on YouTube or Facebook, this is the channel that aims to help you on your baking adventures. Whether you're a complete beginner or you're looking for new ideas, stick around because we're going to be going through a really deliciously easy recipe this morning, and there'll be lots of tips and tricks and recommendations. And if you are either on Facebook, hit the page up with a like. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell, and you'll know next time that I go live or I post a new video. Typically we go live once a week and do a live baking class right here in my kitchen. But today, in about that side in about a minute's time, we're going to be creating a no-bake dessert today, and these are Rice Krispie Millionaire Squares, and I'm going to tell you about that a little bit more once we get inside. But as usual, we're just going to give people a few minutes to pick up their notifications and join us on the live stream. So yeah, about 30 seconds and we'll be getting stuck in. So if you are out there waiting, or if you're on the replay, then let me know. Say hi in the comments. Let me know where you're joining from as well. I love to hear where everybody is, and I see you guys all around the world as well on the catch-ups and on the lives as well. So this time last week we were actually in London, and it was really nice and sunny, but this morning it's really grey and dreary and raining, and it's not at all August here in the Cotswolds. Come back, the sun. Anyway, that's enough waffle. Let's go. We're going to get stuck in today. Let's just flick that. I'm just going to find all my notes for you as well, because this one's got a few bits and pieces. So yeah, we're all set to go. Now this one is going to be in 3 stages today, and we'll be making 3 different layers. There's going to be some chilling and some bits and pieces, so we're going to do as much as we can on camera, and then I'll come back and finish it off. And as always, you're going to get the full blog post with the step-by-step instructions and the link to the video. So let's take a look at what we're doing. And today we're doing a Rice Krispie Millionaire Squares. Now, this picture here is a picture of my healthy Rice Krispies. Have made this though with the Millionaire Squares a couple of times before, but this is a take on like that traditional caramel shortbread. You know, the one with a thick layer of shortbread, a thick layer of caramel, and a nice big thick layer of chocolate on the top. And I got the idea for doing it on a big scale because I was sort of remembering the other day that when life was back and we were back in the office, and now I'm working from home full time, when people bought things in for their birthdays, there was always inevitably a tub of something. Now in the supermarkets nowadays, you can get these tubs in Marks and Spencer's, Waitrose and Tesco's of little pieces of Rocky Road or little brownie bites or various bits and pieces. And one that I remember was these Millionaire shortbread, which were tiny little cubes of the shortbread and the caramel and chocolate. And then one day somebody bought in with Rice Krispie version, which is slightly healthier, maybe. Doesn't have all the butter in that the shortbread and the sugar has in, but they'd always disappear far too quickly. And it just got me thinking. So for today, that's what we're going to do. We're going to make a bigger version of those little Rice Krispie treats. Now, this one is going to make about 12 to 18 normal size portions, not little ones, quite nice sort of squares, like brownie size. And I say there's no baking on this. We haven't got to bake any shortbread. We're going to be making like a Rice Krispie treat base. And then we're going to be making an easy caramel. There is over on the blog, and I'll link down to that, a more traditional caramel, but we're going to be making a nice, easy, I'm just counting my ingredients, 3 ingredient caramel sauce for our thick caramel layer. And then we're going to be covering all that in a nice, big, thick layer of Cadbury's Dairy Milk chocolate, if I cannot eat all the chocolate there. So they say it makes about 12 to 18 portions, depending on how big you want it. So we're going to get looking at the ingredients, which is the wrong ingredients. That is last week's ingredients. Wonderful. I'm just going to see if I can, whilst we're here, just if I can find the ingredients. Oh, happy days. I'm sure I saved those out yesterday. We'll just wait for Photoshop to open. I want to give you the ingredients so you've got everything in case you want to make this before I get the post up. Recipe card in ingredients. There we go. And just let's go with that one. Nearly there. There's always a technical hiccup at the moment. I don't think I've done one recently that I haven't. I guarantee now somewhere on the line we're going to get a picture of the ingredients in the wrong slot. Let's take a look. Let's see how this looks for our ingredients. There we go. A little bit of Photoshop magic whilst we're getting started this morning. Right, our ingredients now, we're sort of got the right ones, not last week's. We're going to, like I say, we're going to be making 3 layers here. And for our Rice Krispie layer, it's a really easy Rice Krispie treat recipe. And we're going to be making this with about 175 grams of Rice Krispies. You might not need all of them. You might not want to make one this big. I'm just looking at my pan now. The one that I picked up is not the one I'd normally do. So I might grab a different pan in a moment. But so we've got about 175 grams of Rice Krispies. Remember, they are full of air, so they do take up a big space, but we are going to compact them down. So we've got those. And then you're also going to need some marshmallows. There's 200 grams of marshmallows here. Now, you'll see people out there calling for all white marshmallows if you want. Now, here in the UK, we tend to have a pink and a white one, and I'm not going to go picking out the pink ones. They're not brightly coloured, so it's not going to taint the colour of your Rice Krispie treats at all. So you want 200 grams just of regular marshmallows, and also a little tip of a butter. So there's 30 grams of unsalted butter there. Now we're using unsalted and we're not adding any salt into this recipe today. So 30 grams of the butter, and that just helps everything come together really nicely. Just pop those to, actually I'll pop those to this side because I'm going to want them in a moment. And then for the caramel layer, like I said, it's mainly a 3 ingredient recipe. I've got a touch of vanilla extract in there if you want to. This is my homemade vanilla extract. You'll find all the details for making that if you want to over on the blog, and I'll link to it below. But you're also going to need about 150 grams of soft brown sugar. Now I'm using a mixture of dark brown and light brown here to give a little bit more of a depth to the caramel. If you like really quite sweet and smooth and creamy caramel, then go for the light brown sugar. If you like a little bit more of an intense, slight bitterness to your caramel, then go for a dark brown sugar. Mixing the two together will just give you a really nice deep caramel flavour. That's what I'm looking for here. So I've got an even split between soft light brown sugar and dark brown sugar, so 75 grams of each. You're also going to need some more butter. So we've got 150 grams of unsalted butter here. And like I say, we're not adding any salt into this, but if you wanted to, you could add flaky sea salt into this and make this a salted caramel instead, but we're just keeping it regular. And then also a can of condensed milk. Now, these cans are about 397 grams, and that's what we're going to use. We're going to use a whole one of these. So it's about 400 grams of condensed milk, but just go on a can. It's easy. That's all done. No weighing on that. Just got to open it. And then for our chocolate layer, we're going to need 250 grams of milk chocolate. Now, you don't have to use milk chocolate. You could use a mix of dark milk or just dark, or white chocolate even, or all three and swirl them through. But we're just going to go for quite a traditional thick slab of milk chocolate on our top. Now then, for equipment wise, you're going to need an 8-inch cake pan or a brownie pan. I was going to make a smaller version in the pan that I used last week for the flapjacks, but actually I'm thinking I can see my larger pan. I think I'm going to go and grab that instead, which will give me a nice good layer in there. But you can use a smaller rectangle pan if you prefer, rather than a square pan. We're also going to need a little bit of baking parchment to line this. And these clothes pegs that I've got on the side will just help keep my parchment in place. So we'll line that shortly. You're also going to need a saucepan, and the larger the better, to be quite honest. I'm doing this on the little induction hob, so I'm having to use my smaller induction saucepan until I get my bigger one. So we'll be doing that. You're also going to need a large mixing bowl for mixing all your Rice Krispies and your marshmallows together. So we have that there. And also, as usual, some utensils, rubber spatulas, spoons, palette knives, anything really, just to help you smooth everything in and layer it down. You don't need too much of anything there. And that's it for equipment wise then, and our ingredients. So if we're going to get started, because there's quite a few bits that we need to do here. So it's quite a heat intensive recipe, so it's probably not one that I'd suggest is good to be doing with little bakers, because hot marshmallows and bits and pieces around, especially the hot caramel, isn't really the best for smalls, but they could help push Rice Krispies in and smooth things over, but just obviously not the heat things. So let's get rid of those. Now we've got the right ingredients. I'm just going to grab a sip. There we go. Right. So first up, we're going to make our Rice Krispie layer. And what we need to do first then is, in our saucepan, just going to move that over a little bit. There we go. In our sauce, I've got all today's recipe is lots of bowls of things, but then just in one bowl. But I'm going to pop into my saucepan my marshmallows. And you keep that bowl, so I'm going to want it again shortly. And also my butter. So that's 30 grams of butter, 200 grams of marshmallows. And put them on the heat. And just low. Now you can heat these in the microwave. They will heat quite easily in the microwave and they puff up. So you need to make sure you do them in a really large bowl. Here on the heat, I can keep an eye on it and I can make sure that everything's under control. Just as the marshmallows heat, especially in the microwave, that air inside that makes puff, it's just going to make them really puff up. So yeah, into our mixing bowl then, I'm just going to add our Rice Krispies. So that's 175 grams of those. I'm going to want both those bowls. So that's it. So we just need to wait for this to melt, which won't take long. I'm just going to pop that there, and I'm going to grab our tray and we'll just quickly line this then. So just going to line with baking parchment, and like before, with things, with the tray bakes and the flapjacks and the brownies, we're going to do it in 2 sheets, one lengthways that overhangs and one widthways. Just pop them that way and then it makes it easier to lift out. Now, I don't want this to burn, so I'm just going to keep an eye on it as well. So, there we go. Me and baking parchment, when it's been rolled up, I'm just going to use that to hold it in place. There's one. They are starting to melt. I need to make sure I get my butter in there as well, because that's what's going to... And it's going to get sticky. I'm not going to lie, it's going to get sticky. So I'm going to lie one... Oh, that's a little bit too light. Oh, it'll be fine. This is me not being able to cut straight. Actually, we're just going to trim that off a little bit. And so if you pop one side like this and you've got these little overhangs there, it's going to help lift everything out later. Just pop that into place and pop a peg on it. Obviously, if you're doing the peg trick, wooden clothes pegs, not plastic clothes pegs. We'll do the other side in a moment. Let's just check on these, because obviously they're sugar. You know, you don't want them to catch. And as you can see, it's starting to get a little bit gooey in there. And the butter just helps make it a nice, smooth, rather than just being all sticky, because we're going to have to wash this up for the caramel next. I was debating earlier which way round do we do? Do we do the caramel? Do we do these? Just going to pop that on there. There we go. Let's just measure out the other way then. So we're going to go with our widthways. So we don't need quite as much. Put that up there for a minute. You can go on there. And take it to about 2/3 across, because I won't need all of that. There we go. And just before we add that into there, I'm just going to check on the marshmallows again. These are, it's like a marshmallowy, soupy, sugary. As you can see, it's all sort of just gooey. So what you want to do this on a really gentle, don't be fierce if you're heating marshmallows on the hob, because they will just burn and it won't work. So you want them to be nice and smooth out there. So they're coming together. And again, a bit like when we're melting chocolate, the residual heat that's in those will help them melt down, but we do want them to be fully melted before we add them into our Rice Krispies. So we've lined one way, we're going to line the other way now, and just the same again, pop that in there. If you don't want to use clothes pegs here, you can use a little bit of cake release or a little bit of butter or something, just to grease the pan, which will hold those in place. There you go. How easy is that? Just in. So we've got one widthways, one lengthways, which means we'll be able to lift out nice and easily. So I'm just going to pop that to one side for the moment. I was going to get a bigger pan. I've just remembered that, but we've done that one now. So we might not need to use all our Rice Krispies this time, but we're it's fine. So as you can see here, I've got this marshmallow soup, and the last of the marshmallows are just starting to melt there. And things, you can use the big marshmallows if you prefer. They will take a little bit longer to melt. So if you're using big sort of toasting marshmallows, chop them up into little pieces. I had a mix of sort of our regular size marshmallows here that you get in the UK and some mini ones that I had left over there, and it's all just melted through. So let's say if you're doing this in the microwave, it will puff up first before it gets through. So I'm just giving it a little stir now to finish off, helping it to melt. You don't want to boil this. This is almost there, so I'm going to grab my Rice Krispies again now. It smells really sweet. Now you can do this sort of with anything. This Rice Krispie melting bit here is sort of a base for anything really. You can then use this, add some fruit. If you go onto the blog, you'll find my breakfast bars. I'm just going to turn that off now. You'll find my breakfast bars, and they're full of like dried fruits, cranberries, sultanas, raisins, pumpkin seeds in there, everything sort of nice that brings it all together. So it doesn't have to be covered in chocolate and caramel, but covered in chocolate and caramel always helps. Now, if you're doing this in a very large saucepan, what you can do then is add the Rice Krispies into your saucepan. But because I've got a smaller saucepan and I want to use a saucepan, I'm going to add them straight into our Rice Krispies here. Now, I'm just going to, not that this is a futile effort, if anybody knows, Rice Krispies trying to do that. But we're doing, so as you can see, I've got this sort of marshmallow soup, and I'm going to pour that straight in, and then I'm going to pop this in the sink because we're going to have to give it a good wash up for our caramel, but that's fine. So look at that. Let's get that in there just quickly, and I'll do that in a minute, but let's get this mixing up now. You want to make sure that you've got all your Rice Krispies coated in the marshmallow and things. Good morning, Amita. It just becomes really sticky. But give your Rice Krispies a really good stir through. Now this is the bit, once you've done the heating of the marshmallows, this is the bit the kids can do, and I've got one stuck to my finger. I love this. This is my bit where I eat this, but I eat so much of this before it gets in the fridge. But as you can see, it sort of clumps together, and I've got little strings of marshmallow there as well. So this is looking good and almost there. Whilst just going to leave that a moment, let's just give this a little rinse off, because I need this nice bowl of hot water. And a coconut scourer. If you find that it's not coming off, a little bit of hot water, or just reheat a little bit of water on the hob with it in, and it will go. That's why I plunged it straight in here. And I've got this little coconut scourer as well. There we go. Let's give that just a quick rinse off. And forgot to get my tea towels down this morning. So before we make the caramel, if you are reusing a pan, you want to make sure your pan is very dry. Again, we don't want to be making our caramel in a wet pan. Right, that's that one done. That's important stage done. I needed to make sure I got that pan washed up. So back to our Rice Krispies then and our tray. Now, I'm not going to use all of these in here. I'm going to actually separate them off. I'm going to probably do some breakfast bars with these. But I'm going to, you see, this is really sticky. So if you're doing this by hand, the easiest way is to actually coat your hands with a little bit of like baking spray or baked cake release or butter, or I want to just get, let's see how much that gives us, because once it sticks to you, as you're going to see in a minute, it sticks to everything. Let's get, oh, I'm going to eat that one. Let's just cut this up. Now, there's a few recipes using Rice Krispies and things like this on the blog, including the Christmas puddings that every year go mad. And if you're doing anything, like I say, if you're doing anything by hand or shaping anything by hand with your Rice Krispies, grease up first because it's a lot easier. I'm just going to pop that to one side. And we're going to go in with just flattening these off for the minute. As you can see, they are so sticky, which is why also having the clothes pegs on here is really handy, because they'll hold your baking parchment in place. And I'm just gently easing everything around to start with. And then I'm going to start, once you've got things in, like once it knows where it's going in the pan, you can then start pushing down with the back of your spoon, sort of just getting it, oh. And we're back. Yeah, so once you've sort of spread it out, you can get in there with your spoon and sort of now, whatever tin you're doing it, there needs to be a good inch thick, because what we don't want to do is have no room for our caramel or our chocolate layers. So I'm just going to make sure everything's in. I might actually just add a little bit more in here. So I could just add a little bit of another layer. This stuff has a mind of its own. So let's do that. Come on. Concentration as I do that. Maybe, should we just scrape these bits from around the top? If you have got any left, you can just make them into Rice Krispie bites, Rice Krispie balls, like I say, like the Christmas puddings. With the Christmas pudding ones, I melt chocolate in with them, or you can use Cocoa Pops as well, sort of chocolate rice cereal. I'm just going to give it another scoop there. Let's move that one out of the way. And once again, just with the back of the spoon, work it out. You don't want to go too hard on this, because if you go too hard on it, you're going to crush your Rice Krispies. But just smooth out into a nice, even layer. Where's it gone? Oh, there we go. It's a bit of an arm workout on a Sunday morning, this. I'm just going to push this top down into the corners. Make sure it's all level. If you're still there, thank you very much for sticking through the Rice Krispie layer. I'm just going to pull it out, smooth it off. Let's just get rid of that peg for a minute. And actually, once this is in, you probably don't need those closed pegs anymore because this ain't going anywhere. But like you say, and you can see, doing the smoothing is really helpful. It stops you pulling everything everywhere. Right, I'd say that's good to go. So as you can see then, we've got a nice sort of layer of Rice Krispies. I've still got a good centimetre here around the edge of my pan for my caramel. Now you can pop this in the fridge for about 15 minutes to chill just whilst you make the caramel. So we're going to do that now. We had to have a new fridge the other week. The heat absolutely killed the fridge. I don't know how, but it did. Right, I'm just going to, let's tidy up a little bit because we're going to get messy with caramel now. In that goes. So this is our easy caramel. Like I say, on the blog, there is a recipe that's made sort of traditionally sort of with cream and butter and sugar and everything, and you bring it to different boiling temperatures. We're going a little bit easier with this one. We've still got to be careful on and keep an eye on it because we're going to boil this out. But we're going with 3 ingredients and a little bit of vanilla extract. So for our caramel layer, then I'll just pop the ingredients back up. We've got our condensed milk, so that's 1 tin of condensed milk. We've got 150 grams of unsalted butter, and we've also got our 150 grams of soft brown sugar. And these are all going to go into one saucepan, believe it or not. So we're going to start off with our butter and sugar. So in this goes, and we're using unsalted butter because I don't want a salted caramel. I'm not even adding any salt at all. If you want a salted caramel, you'll find the instructions on the blog, but you want to use like a sea salt flake and melt that in to your caramel and taste regularly on that. But we're just going to keep this as a normal caramel. So it's 150 grams of butter and 150 grams of our sugar. And I'll talk to you about, that's the soft brown sugar. I can't get the lid off this now. There we go. And we're just going to add in a teaspoon of our vanilla extract. I love the smell of that. Now, somebody commented on the blog the other day saying if you don't weigh out your beans, it's not a true extract. But what we were doing and the instructions in that is to make it easy, but it does give you an extract that is perfectly usable and really lovely and vanilla-y. So, and you don't need to weigh beans, especially as they're so expensive. So it's just vodka and vanilla beans. So onto our hob again. I'm going to do this on a low heat to start with. Because we want to melt our butter and our sugar, and then once that's melted, we're going to add in this and we're going to bring it to a rapid boil. Now you can add everything in together and sort of do it and then bring it to boil, but the caramel might not come together fully. So this is our condensed milk. Now you can, if you want to cheat, you can buy Carnation caramel already done for you. So you don't have to do this and you just pour it on and leave it and let it set. But we want to make an easy caramel. So we're just going to open this up here. Let's get that. Have I managed to? I hate opening tins. Let's get rid of that for a minute. So, it's dribbling, it's off. So that started to heat through. Now, what's going to happen is once we've got to this point, when we're ready with our condensed milk, we're going to cool it very quickly. We're going to plunge the base of the saucepan into a bowl of cold water. So I'm just going to get a bowl here. And basically what that's going to do, it's going to stop our caramel from cooking. So I'm just going to let that fill up a little bit. Leave that there. I'm going to get the hot trivet, so I don't forget that it's hot. So this is one that you are going to need to keep an eye on. You can't just sort of walk away from it. So this is our sugar and our butter. I'm just giving that a little stir. You wouldn't normally stir it, but I'm just giving that a quick stir there to give it a helping hand. And yes, we are making caramel. So when I was looking at everything and thinking about shortbread, I was wondering where it came from, because I remember always buying like big long slabs from like Costa or from Marks and Spencer's, or if I was going on a train journey, there was always a big long slab of this caramel millionaire shortbread. And when I was looking into it, I always thought, and it did originate from Scotland, and that tends to be where we think of it, but also it was another sort of Australian recipe, which I think we had the other week with Rocky Road. So there's a lot of things that they're coming through from Oz. I'm really liking looking at all the Australian recipes at the moment. They're just sort of really nice. So this one, yeah, apparently this it's a 1970s recipe. So we're going back retro again on this. And also I was looking, there's people, you can do this. So with the Rice Krispies, rather than melting with the marshmallows, you could melt Mars bars in there, or you could use your caramel, some of the caramel to bind the Rice Krispies together as well. But we've gone with, obviously, with that marshmallow for a more traditional Rice Krispie treat. So I'm just watching here the sugar and the butter sort of coming together. I'm just going to see how that's looking. And so this is definitely one not for with the smalls at all. This is going to get very hot. Now, we're not using a sugar thermometer with this. You can, if you want to, when we add the condensed milk in, you want to be bringing it up to about the softball stage, about 112, to 115 degrees C. Once we've put this in, I'm just going to turn that down because it's going to get hot. Let's focus on this for a moment. I'm going to add this in. All of that condensed milk in. I'm going to... Excuse me. Tickly cough today. There we go. Let's just get rid of that. And a sip. So that's our condensed milk in with our butter and our sugar and our vanilla extract. Now, I used a dark brown and a light brown sugar here because I wanted quite a deep caramel. You can use, if you want to, you can use all light brown sugar. It will give you a nice, smooth, mellow caramel taste. If you go for a darker if you want a darker, richer, deeper, slightly more bitter caramel, then use all dark sugar, dark brown sugar. And I used a mix of both. So I split that 150 grams and did half dark and half light brown sugar. And I'm using the Billingtons, which I absolutely love. Billingtons, mixing up with Allenton's flour and Billington's sugar. I'm using the Billingtons dark brown muscovado and the light brown muscovado. Now this needs to now it's all mixed together. This needs to come, as you can see, it's there, it's coating our spoon. This needs to come to a rapid boil and then cook out until it's thickened. So I'm just gonna pop that up a little bit. I'm just gonna grab a sponge and clean up that. And we're just waiting for that caramel to boil. And by that point, our Rice Krispies will be nice and chilled as well. Now I can see this starting to go and thicken. So we're nearly there. So if you wanted to do the salted caramel, this would be sort of the time. Once we've got past this rapid boil stage, you can add your salt in, and you add it in a bit at a time. And we tend to use sea salt, flaky sea salt, because it gives that nicer salty. It's not chemically, it's not harsh, it's not overpowering, rather than a table salt that you'd have in like a little salt cellar. So this is boiling up. I'm just going to turn that down and gently so don't want it to catch on the bottom either. And then I'm just going to cook it out a little bit so it thickens up. As you can see, it's getting thick already. And say, because I've got this as that mix of the dark and the light brown, it's quite a deep, dark caramel colour. There we go. I'm just going to cook that out a little bit more. Come on. I can see it starting to go. It's like in those cartoons you used to watch when little, you'd see the bubbling cauldrons and things. They've got the bloop bloop of it coming through. I can see it now. So nearly there, and then we're going to plunge that, base that into the cold water, and then I'm just going to transfer it into another bowl, actually into this bowl, just to cool down. And then we can get that pan as well into the sink. I've just noticed it's absolutely chucking it down out there today. Good old British summer. I'm desperate to get into the garden. It needs mowing and there's weeds, but it's just far too wet out there at the moment. This is boiling up again, which is great. So I'm just going to leave that there for a minute. So let it cook through. And it smells really, it's got that really deep caramel smell, which is, oh, it's lush. This is the waiting game. So if you're just joining us, hello. We're making caramel. We're making caramel from Millionaire's Rice Krispie Square. Rice Krispie's Millionaire Square. A take on a millionaire shortbread. Right. That's had a good cook for a minute. I'm just going to see how that's looking. That's looking And this is going to thick up as it cools as well. Thicken up as it cools as well. So then, don't know if you can see that. See, it's this thick, dark colour. I know, I've taken it off the heat. I'm still getting used to this little induction hob. So actually, let's just give this a test on the soft ball stage. I'm just thinking whilst that finishes off, I'm just going to grab a glass of cold water. So the softball stage then, if you haven't got a thermometer or anything like that, is about 112 to 115 degrees C. And then if we take a small amount, how chilled is that? That's not very chilled. This might not work because I don't know if this is chilled enough. Let's have a, it's gonna, come on. And then it should be squishable. There we go. So that is now done. We're ready to go. We don't want to cook it too much more. So I've got my pan, my bowl of cold water, just dropping that in there. I'm not doing this on camera because it's in the sink. And that's going to stop our caramel from cooking any further. Obviously, it's still hot, but it's not cooking any further. I'm just going to move that away for the moment. Just pop them in the sink, and I'm just going to, I want to pour this into a heat-proof bowl then. Should have put it in the larger one, to be quite honest. Cool down quicker. To stop it cooking in there. I'm just going to show you this. As you see on the back of our knife, spatula is thick and caramelly. Yes, that's thick and caramelly. Let's just get rid of all of those. So this is going to be quite warm for the moment, so I'm just going to pop that over there. Just cool, clean down. So that's our caramel and that's our Rice Krispie layers done. So the next thing will be to melt the chocolate. Now, we don't really want to melt the chocolate and pour that on until the caramel is set. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give this a few minutes just to cool down a little bit more before we pour over our Rice Krispies. But I'm going to go through the recipe. We'll do the recipe overview and we'll look at the ingredients again. And then we'll finish off by getting our Rice Krispies out of the fridge, pouring the caramel over and then popping that back in to chill and set. And then later on, I'll finish off with the chocolate and I'll let you know what that looks like, obviously. So whilst we're just waiting for things to do their bits and pieces, I'm just going to move that out of the way. Grab a quick drink. So then let's just flick back to our recipe. So today we've been making Millionaire Squares, Rice Krispie Millionaire Squares. Now these are a take on a caramel shortbread or a Millionaire shortbread, where you have that big thick layer of shortbread, that thick layer of set caramel, and then a set chocolate layer on the top. Excuse me. And we're going to be making about 12 to 18 portions, depends how big you want to cut these up, and it is a totally no bake recipe. So there's no need to turn the oven on, it's all just heating things on the hob as you've seen. So we've got that really nice chewy Rice Krispie layer that you've seen. We've got some left over. We've got our lovely thick caramel layer here, which is cooling at the moment before we pour it over on the top. And then we're going to take a big bowl of dairy milk chocolate, melt this and pour over for our final finishing flourish of thick chocolate to set all together. So that's that. In terms of ingredients wise, again, it's really, it looks a lot because we have 3 layers, but actually simple techniques, simple ingredients. So for our Rice Krispie layer, obviously we've got Rice Krispies. You could switch them. You could use Cocoa Pops if you wanted to, if you wanted a chocolatey layer as well. We've used 200 grams of marshmallows, and they're just regular marshmallows here. If you're using big ones, chop them into pieces with a pair of scissors before you heat them. Just helps them heat through quicker and doesn't catch on the bottom. And we're using a little bit of unsalted butter, 30 grams of unsalted butter, and that's just to help the marshmallows be a bit more fluid when they're melted, so we get that marshmallowy soup that we saw, and helps pour it in and mix it all together. For our caramel layer then, as you see, we've made our caramel. So this was a really quick 3-ingredient caramel with a touch of our homemade vanilla extract in there. And we've used a whole can of condensed milk. So that's the thing, use 1 whole can of condensed milk. Don't go faffing around for 3 grams of condensed milk to make 400 grams or anything like that. 1 can, about 397 grams of condensed milk. Excuse me. We've used soft brown sugar, and as I was just saying, I've used a mix of light brown sugar and dark brown sugar to get this really deep, rich caramel in colour. But you can use all light for a nice, smoother caramel, or you can use all dark for a sort of more intense, slightly bitter caramel instead. And we've added again unsalted butter, 150 grams of unsalted butter to that. If you want to make this a salted caramel, add in flaky sea salt and not a table salt. If you're adding a table salt in, it's sort of too chemically, so it's not going to taste that nice salted caramel that we like. But I'll link to my salted caramel recipe in the comments, which will give you all the information about making a salted caramel. Slightly different technique to this, but how you're adding the salt in is the same. And then for our chocolate layer, obviously, like I just said, we've got 250 grams of chocolate, and that's dairy milk, but you can use milk chocolate, white chocolate, dark chocolate, a combination of all of them. Put milk chocolate on and feather through the others if you wanted to as well. Equipment wise, you can make this in an 8-inch cake pan or a brownie pan. I've made it in a rectangle pan like I did the flapjacks the other week, which you'll see in a minute when I get out the fridge. You're going to need a large saucepan. Like you've seen, we've melted the marshmallows and made our caramel all on the hob. And you're going to need a mixing bowl and some spatulas and some spoons just to give everything a mix together. So that's our quick run back through of our ingredients and our equipment. Let's get these Rice Krispies out of the fridge. So here we go. So these have set. They're feeling quite well set in there. And now I'm going to pour over. I've put all my spoons in the wash. We're going to pour over our caramel. And you can just help it round. And this is why we want at least an inch deep pan here. I'm just going to put a little bit more of that. And you can keep the rest of the caramel, if you've not used all of it, in the fridge. You can pour it on ice cream, eat it. You can just use it, add it into various bits and pieces in your bakes. So now it's there, it's ready. Basically, I'm not going to do much more with that. I'm just going to move. That's not going to get warm, actually. So this now, I don't want to put this straight in the fridge because our caramel is still warm. So I'm going to let it sort of cool down to room temperature, which now it's spread out onto a larger surface. It will start to drop in temperature quite quickly. And then once it's nice and cool, I will then put it in the fridge. If I put it in the fridge now, it's too hot and it's going to kill the fridge, basically. And I don't want another fridge. Had to buy one already recently. And then when that is totally set, so give it a good couple of hours, then melt your chocolate and pour it over the top of here. Then put it all back in the fridge and let it set completely. Now, when you go to cut this, you're going to need a really sharp knife. And what I try and do is heat it a bit like with the cheesecake, heat it under the hot tap. So run the blades under hot running water, and just fill your washing up bowl whilst you're doing that. Don't let the water go to waste. Run that under thing, dry it off, and then cut it up from there. And that will help you with the chocolate. Now, because it's cold when it comes out the fridge, if you go straight in, the chocolate will just crack on the top. So score first with the knife. So you've also got some guides of where you want to be going and how big of pieces you want. Score with the knife first and then gently go through the chocolate. Bang, it disappears. So yeah, score first, then go through with your knife and it'll be good. It doesn't matter actually if you don't want pretty tops or whatever. And you can cut these into whatever size pieces you want. You can cut them into the big pieces like a brownie or a flapjack size, or you can cut them into those mini pieces like you see in the little tubs in the supermarkets. But that's it. So I'm gonna leave my chocolate for later. I've got a little bit of caramel sauce still chilling off, and I've got a little bit of Rice Krispie treats ready sort of to do things with. So I might turn them into something. I might sort of, with what I've got left over, put them in a little tray and add some fruit and bits and pieces, have them as a cereal bar for later. So I'm just thinking, do I want a little bit more caramel on there? Do I want a little bit more caramel on there? Maybe. I can't get enough of this. Just gonna smooth that over into this corner because it didn't look like there was enough in this corner or in this corner. There we go. If you want to, you can take the trusty palette knife and take it over the top and it'll set. But just give it a jiggle and your caramel will find its own way out. There we go. So I'm going to leave this now just at room temperature to chill before I pop it into the fridge, just so that caramel isn't so hot when it goes in the fridge. I'm going to have a tidy up because the only thing with this is it is really messy. You've got the sticky Rice Krispies, you've got the caramel, you've got the chocolate, you've got all sorts. So There we go. And as usual, I'll pop everything onto the website. Will be up sort of within the next few days. Hopefully, I'm trying to catch up at the moment. Posted quite a few recently. We've had the lemon and raspberry scones. We've had the Biscoff Rocky Road, which we did. We had the Neapolitan cheesecake from last session of Kitchen Live. And I've got the flapjacks that I need to photograph today as well. The chocolate finger chocolate cheesecake, which I have to say, it's possibly my favourite now cheesecake ever that I've made. I absolutely loved it. That will be coming up. I've got the photos to edit from that, and that will be coming up shortly. I'm really excited because I thought that cheesecake just was, it was that nice shortcake base with the dairy milk filling, and then we got the chocolate ganache on the top, and you've got the chocolate fingers around the outside. One of my favorites, but that will be up soon, as long as and with everything else on the website. And I'll post the links to obviously the salted caramel recipe. So if you want to make it as a salted caramel, you've got that information as well to help you there. Right then, next week we are actually coming now back to Sunday mornings. It's a little bit easier for you guys, is the feedback that I'm getting. It is here. We're not battling with the sunlight that's coming streaming through here, and it's all bits and pieces, and we're around. So we've got a couple more to go. Next week, I've just entitled it Cupcakes. Haven't made a cupcake for a very long time, so we're going to make cupcakes, and to be honest, I'm not sure what we're going to do yet. I had various bits and pieces in mind, and it was going to be a loaf cake. And then I thought cupcakes, and you know what? It might be cupcakes or loaf cakes. I haven't decided. What I might do is I put it out to you guys on the Facebook and on the YouTube and on Instagram as a poll. In fact, I might even do it on the TikTok. Oh, we're on TikTok. Yeah, we're on TikTok. That is a drain on my life. I'm just going to watch one video an hour later. Didn't realize that I needed to make so many, learn so many random dances. Anyway, enough of that. I'll put it out to vote, see if you want a loaf cake or if you want cupcakes, and we'll see what we can do next week. And we'll be back on Sunday, 15th of August, 10 o'clock British summertime here at UK time. But don't forget, you can catch on the catch up as well if you want to. And don't forget, this is I'm trying to make everything deliciously easy. It's delicious and it's easy to make. There are a few techniques, like we've just made the caramel, but there's also shortcuts, like with the caramel, that we can do. But if you're a complete beginner, or you're looking for something new to make, or you're the next Mary Berry, I'm hoping you find something here and things. But don't forget, if you are on Facebook, hit the page up with a like. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ping the notification bell. Either way, Facebook or YouTube, if you do that, next time we go live, next time we post a video, and next time there's a new recipe, you will be one of the first to know. So yeah, I want to say thank you very much for your Sunday morning. I've been Lou, your dessert obsessed baker, and I hope you're all well. Have a good week, and I'll see you soon. Bye.